Go ahead.
Okay, alhamdulillah, I started the recording. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Welcome to the Islamic Center of Hawthorne program. Today we have special guests here, and they will be sharing their personal experiences in relating to fostering and foster care and the foster care system, actually. If you guys are attending our program regularly, you have already met with Sakina about 1 month ago with Sheikh Suhail Mullah, who is a social worker and Imam of Islamic Society of West Valley, and they both talked about the benefits of fostering, being a foster parent, fostering children. Alhamdulillah, this is a great opportunity, and a very honorable opportunity. And inshallah, without any further ado, I'll hand this off to Sister Sakina, and she will be moderating the discussion today. Inshallah, whenever she's ready.
All right, Jazakumullah khair. So our tech issues are not being figured out, so I will just, inshallah, present it without the PowerPoint, but hopefully can still get the message across, and maybe, Omar, I can send it to you after if anyone is interested and missed some of the details, inshallah. But so yeah, as was shared last month, we discussed the importance of foster care in the Muslim community, Sheikh Suhail had talked about how caring for kids who are at risk, who don't have access to their parental figures, is really at the core of our deen. And Sheikh Suhail had talked about, the numerous hadith and examples of the Prophet ﷺ and the companions who had really put caring for orphans and children without parents at the forefront of their homes, of their way of being. And beyond just funding, the orphans overseas or something like that, but there's just the importance of really opening our hearts and our homes to these children. So wanted today to talk about, well, what does that really look like? Sorry, 1 second. Yeah, so talking today about what does that really look like in the context of American society, and how does that work? So in LA County, and also in Orange County as well, but specifically in LA County, we have the most foster children in the whole state in our county. And we have close to 30,000 kids in the system just in LA County, and even more in Orange County if we're talking about greater Southern California. And the number of kids needing homes is at such a climax that our Director of Children and Family Services in LA County has stated that it's at crisis levels. That if it wasn't for relatives being able to care for some of these kids, it would be an utter disaster. So what we're trying to do is advocate and educate the Muslim community about the importance of caring for these kids, because they're, first of all, it's our duty in general, right, to care for children who are in need of support, regardless of the faith of their parents or their cultural upbringing. In addition to that, we actually do have Muslim children who do come into the system, and when we don't have Muslim homes available for them, they end up going into homes where their culture, their faith is not understood and not necessarily as valued as is healthy for the children. So what we want to try to do is increase the number of Muslim families in the system, so that way, especially when Muslim children come into the system who are removed from their parents for various reasons, that we have families available to be able to take in these children. And inshallah, we're going to be hearing from some Muslim foster parents a little bit later today. I'm going to just give a brief overview of what foster care looks like, and then open it up to our foster parent panel. And alhamdulillah, I think we will probably have a social worker here today as well, who's a Muslim social worker in our local Torrance office, to be able to share with us what that looks like. So I wanted to just describe, first of all, what exactly is foster care. So foster care is a temporary arrangement in which adults provide the care of a child or children whose birth parent is unable to care for them. So the county will step in and remove the child from an unsafe home and provide to find support for that child. In California, these families where the children go while they're waiting to be reunified with their parents, and I'll explain that in a little bit, we call resource families. So a resource family is any family that can take the temporary custody of a child through the county process to be a temporary substitute parent for those children while they're in the foster care system or the child welfare system. So with the way that this works is that there will be an incident instance in which a child is, for whatever reason, is referred to protective services. So it could be, a teacher noticing certain bruises or certain types of neglect in a child, like maybe they haven't showered in a few weeks and are wearing dirty clothes every day, or maybe they've noticing bruises or something like that, or any other call that comes into protective services for when an adult is concerned about the welfare of a child. So what happens is if there seems to be enough to go on, then an emergency response team will be issued to go and investigate what's happening with that child. If it's deemed that the home is unsafe, the child will be removed. The first goal is to try to find a relative who can support that child while they're trying to work with the parents to fix whatever the challenges are. And if they can't find a relative to take the child in, then they'll go to what they call the resource families that we talked about earlier. So while the child is in the system, whether with a relative or with a resource family, there's a process that we call concurrent planning. And during this process, the ultimate goal is to give the child what we call permanency, right? Is we don't want the child to be in limbo for years and years and years on end, or the system doesn't want them to be ideally not in the remaining in the system permanently, right? So they want to give them a permanency plan to have a healthy home in the long run. The first goal is always going to be reunification with the parents, with the biological parent. So trying to help the parent rectify or fix whatever the challenges were, so that way that they can go back to the parent. So that might look like parenting classes, it might look like therapy. If there's, for example, drugs or something like that involved, it could be a rehabilitation program. Whatever it is that the county and the courts advocate for to support those children, that will be part of the plan towards reunification. Simultaneously, there's an alternative plan often that is working. Well, what if reunification with the biological parents does not happen? In that case, the kids will need another permanency option. So simultaneously, they'll be looking at, well, if the parents can't take over as and to be reunified, then maybe the children can be either adopted or go to legal guardianship. And that's when they'll turn to the resource families to say, would you think you'll be interested or willing to take on these children? So these are the kind of options, or like what the process looks like in terms of when a children comes into the system. So a resource parent, again, is someone who cares for a child, whether it's for a few days or to several months or years, while that children's in what we call out-of-home placement. So the process to become a resource parent includes, or actually before I get into the process, who could be a resource parent? So the person could be single or married. They could be any gender. They could be a renter or homeowner. It could be a house, apartment, even mobile home. They could be working. They can stay at home. The only thing is they need to be 18 years old, and they need to be financially stable for their own needs. So the resource parents do get a stipend or reimbursement, actually, from the county to care for a child. So they don't need to have additional funds to spend on the child, because they will get reimbursed from the county for having a child in their care. But they need to be able to at least take care of their own needs. And they need to have at least one available bed in their home. So there are sometimes some other restrictions in terms of how many children there can be per bedroom, how many children overall in the home. So there can be like 6 children overall in the home usually. Sometimes there's some exceptions, including a person's own biological children, in addition to the foster children that they're bringing in. So those other additional caveats come into play with the specific needs of the child. So in terms of the process, there's 2 different ways that a person can become an approved resource family. So they can go directly through the county. In LA, we call the Department of Children and Family Services. I always forget what they call it in Orange County, but I still call it Department of Children and Family Services. And directly going through the county is a process where a person would contact the county, contact the DCFS, and say, I want to become a resource parent, and then they start you in the process. The other option is to go through a nonprofit called a foster family agency. And the foster family agency also can provide the support to go through that process. And we'll get into the differences between the 2, I think, a little bit more in the Q&A. But there are those 2 options. So as soon as a person identifies which agency they want to go with, they'll contact the agency to begin the process, or they might contact a few agencies to kind of get a feel for which one they want to go with. Once they decide, they'll go through an orientation application process. There's several hours of training required to become a resource family. So this training goes over parenting, it goes over the process, it goes over trauma, how to deal with children who have had really difficult life experiences. There will also be a very involved home environment check, or sometimes called a home study, right? So they'll come in and take a look at your home and make sure that it's safe for children. There's a very involved, and I think maybe some of the foster parents might call it invasive, psychosocial assessment, where they really get into the nitty-gritty, wanting to know how the family functions emotionally, relationship-wise, and all of that. There's also CPR first aid required, health and TB screenings, background checks, live scan, and DMV checks. So these are kind of all of the ways that are necessary to go through the process of becoming a resource family. This whole process can take, depending on the agency chosen, can take between 3 to 4 months to about a year, because there's all these steps involved. So the different types of resource families. So a resource family can be a long-term provider. So these would be the people that are looking to take care of the children for as long as it takes for them to get back, either to get back with their parents or to another permanency option, or in some cases, to another foster parent if for some reason it's not working out. The other type of resource family is what we call a respite provider, and respite providers provide temporary care to give relief to the long-term foster families or resource families. So, for example, if I'm a foster family, the foster resource family, and I kind of need a weekend off, I can tell my social worker or that, hey, I need some respite. So they'll call up a respite provider, and the respite provider is still approved, so the child can go to their home for the weekend or a few weeks, however much is long as needed. So those are kind of the different types of resource families available. Both of them go through the same process. So someone who starts as a respite provider, for example, and just wants to be an extra support can, overnight decide they want to do long-term foster care and still have their license available. So they have all of those options available. And there's different other ways as well to support foster kids, which we can get into later. But I do want to step back now and introduce our panel. And what I'd love for each person on our panel to do is, let me get to my questions here.
If I could interject, sorry.
Yeah.
If you're supposed to be a panelist, please raise your hand and I'll make you a panelist so that you can participate in the discussion.
Okay. Just checking really quick to see if any of our panelists are.
Yeah, Sister Nilofer.
Yes.
So I'm going to make you a panelist, inshallah. Just a second.
I'm not a panelist.
Okay, that was my
Oh,
mistake.
sorry. Inshallah, no problem. Do you see any other names, Sister Sakina?
I think Huda, is that, Huda, are you there? Is that the same Huda who's our social worker?
Assalamu alaikum, Huda? No, I don't think so.
Okay. Okay, so the other Huda's, I think, trying to figure out, it might be on soon. So I did want to invite our panelists. I know I just kind of threw out a lot of information, and we will have quick Q&A at the end, but I think it'll all start to come together as our panelists introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their own experiences. So if we could start with, sorry, let me scroll back up so I can see. So if Nadia, if you don't mind, I know you've done this before, if you want to just introduce yourself, a little bit about your foster care journey, and any quick tips, and then we'll come back again as well with the Q&A at the end.
Okay, sure. So my name is Nadia, and this is my husband, Fawad. So we have just our foster care journey. We have two biological children, ages 7 and 4, and we really wanted to foster. It was a process of realizing what a need there was for homes and for kids, and then realizing we could meet that need. It wasn't it wasn't an automatic, we always knew we were going to do this type of thing, or maybe it was before. But it took me some time to kind of learn about it, hear about it, see in action, and actually Amina, who's on the panel too, as she went through the process and shared with me the experiences, that's what really helped me visualize it and say, yes, this is something I want to do. And so we were certified through an FFA, which is the nonprofit, and we just chose that one again because Amina had been on it and had good experiences. So that was a great, for us, that was a great decision. We felt like they gave us a lot of support, personalized attention, and so we got our license about 2 years ago, and since have fostered a set of 2 little girls for just about a week, and fostered one 11-year-old for about a year.
Sure. So one of the reasons that we decided to do this was we wanted to grow our family also, and our intention was actually to foster to adopt. So far that hasn't been the case, although when you're doing this, every time the social worker calls you, they'll let you know what the likelihood is of the child that's potential for your home that they'll be adopted. So oftentimes they know this is just short term or they've just been removed from the home. And so there's no way to know right now if it'll be a long-term thing or it could be short-term. And the 11-year-old that we had we did know that it was a short-term thing. Well, we actually thought it was going to be very short-term, but she was coming from the Muslim community and her father had reached out to us. And so we agreed to take her, and it just ended up being a year. And so now she just left recently, and we're just waiting for our next placement.
We did go through a lot of options because we did want to grow our family. We did want to adopt. So we looked at international adoption. We looked at in-country adoption, and there's a lot of hurdles, expensive, and having to stay in country and things. And then when we learned more about foster care and the need that it was there, that felt like a good match for us.
Great, thank you so much, both Nadia and Fawad. Inshallah, we'll come back as questions come up or as you think of more things you want to share. Safia, would you like to go next and share your journey? Oh, yep. If you can unmute yourself.
That would be helpful. Sorry about that. Okay. So my journey is shorter, but alhamdulillah, about to be a year, I guess, certified, alhamdulillah, as a foster parent. And similar to what Nadia was saying, I think it was one of those things where it was a need that I knew that I was able to fill. I think one of the misconceptions that people have is, you know, I guess you have to have your own family or have a certain like lifestyle in order for you to do that. And so I think when the timing is right and you're able to do it, then I encourage everybody who is able to do it. So alhamdulillah, it's just me, and I decided to do it long time ago, but I wasn't at that place in my life. So I worked with foster kids outside of being a foster parent. That helped me get to this point, alhamdulillah, to be able to become a foster parent. I had one child briefly for a couple of days. And then I had actually Muslim foster kid recently that just went back to her dad's house. So alhamdulillah, I was reunified with her family. And yeah, alhamdulillah, it's been a good journey. And I'm glad I did it. And just as a quick tip, I think if people are interested in doing it, learning more about it and interacting with different programs with foster kids kind of helps pave the way for people that are a little bit apprehensive of the whole system and, you know, dealing with children that might have some level of trauma, but kind of easing yourselves into it. And then, of course, reaching out to people that have done it and have experience would be helpful. Jazakallah khair.
Alhamdulillah, thank you, Safia. Amina, can you share, please? Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Jazakallah khair to Islamic Center of Hawthorne and Sakina and all the panelists, all that you do, and everyone here who are, you know, listening to this issue and thinking about your own family and if you can take this on, or just becoming an advocate for this too. And the reason I mention that is because Sakina here, we're sisters if you didn't know. Sakina was my first advocate, and even though, you know, she hasn't had kids placed with her, learning about her experience and getting certified and stuff, you know, was one of the first reasons that I decided that my husband and I decided that this was something we wanted to do. We wanted to have a blended family of both adopted and biological children. At that time, biological children wasn't working out for us, so we decided to move forward with cross-adopt. We went through an FFA, as Nadia mentioned, based in Orange County. They do have LA office as well. We started off going through San Bernardino County because we were living in Chino Hills at the time, and we decided that an FFA was a better choice for us. We did go through the matching process, so we were not looking for children from Muslim backgrounds. We were interested in fostering and adopting children from any background. We're strong believers that, you know, all children are in a state of fitra, and there are don't have religion. They are all Allah's children. And so for us, it was important to be open to taking on children from the broader community and providing them a home. And so we did go through the matching process, and we did have 2 children who are now our children placed with us. At that time, they were 22 months and 3.5 years old. And now they are, one just turned 9, the younger boy, and the girl just is 10.5. A couple years ago, we had a biological child, this little minion here. So we incorporated, I guess, a biological child into our blended family. When our older 2 were placed with us, we did also have a very short-term placement of a young baby from a Muslim family. She was reunified with her biological mom very quickly, after a day actually. The court ordered her back with bio mom, so that was a good ending for the baby because she was just 13 months. Mommy, oh, she wants to watch Frozen and Elsa. Sorry, I'll attend to her in a minute. We have also, within the last 6 months, also taken on another foster child from the broader community. She's 17 years old, and she was actually matched with my mother through which my mother, Sadia, will explain through her mentorship program. Yeah, it's we've enjoyed the journey. We've learned so much, but we've enjoyed it. We've learned much. We have more love in our lives because we have now 4 children, and there's lots of love to go around. But I'm not gonna lie, it can be really tough at times. It can be really, really challenging. But these are the cards that these kids were dealt in life, and it's not their fault. It's society's fault over the last couple of centuries of just failing these kids in the community over and over and over again. So I do feel strongly that, we as a Muslim community need to step up to absorb some of that responsibility to help these kids in our community have a safe, loving, and stable home.
Jazakallah khair, Mommy. Sadia, if you can share, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Sakina's and Amina's mom. I'm a foster grandma, I guess. I also, as Amina was said, I volunteered for several years with Kids Day, which is a mentoring program, basically for older foster kids between 9 and 17. I have met a lot of kids through them, and they're all good kids. I mean, they have issues, but they've been through a lot. And I was finally matched with a girl and last year, and then Amina ended up becoming her foster. Amina and Faisal became her foster family. She's been with them for what, 6 months now? Yeah. Oh yes. Okay. Something about 6 months or something. So anyway, I just have a lot of experience of meeting a lot of the kids through this program that I've been part of for a long time.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So we did want to make sure to open it up to everyone participating today to see what questions you have. So I think, actually, Huda, I apologize if you're here. If you can unmute yourself, or I can unmute you, I think, if you can share, inshallah.
Yeah, I'm a social worker with DCFS, and I just want to echo what Sakina was saying, that it is really important for us to have more foster parents, especially Muslim foster parents, because when Muslim children are detained, they feel out of place when they're placed somewhere else. When it's a non-Muslim home, the culture is different, their religion is different, they're ripped away from their community. It's enough that they're taken from their family, so to have them at least in a Muslim home, I feel like it lessens the blow a little bit, and it also helps the parents to reunify. I feel like if the parents, if the foster parents are able to connect with the parents themselves, it gives them a higher chance to reunify with the parents, the children themselves. And then they were mentioning Kids Day, how that it deals with older kids as well. So in general, we need more foster parents to take in older kids. A lot of times they're put in group homes, and they end up not having a permanent place to go. They end up being in homelessness, but what they really want is a family. So if we can get more foster parents involved who are willing to take in, especially the older kids, that would help them a lot to deal with that trauma and prevent them from, going a bad future once they exit the foster care system. That's all I have.
Thank you so much for that. And if I could just add to that too, I think so. There are a few of us who do this advocacy work, and when we do, or either us on the outside who are doing advocacy work, or people like Huda who are on the inside and supporting us social workers within the county system, when we do notice that there's a Muslim child, we're kind of scrambling, right? Trying to find who's available and what type of Muslim homes do we have. So we have our list of Muslim foster parents, and I'll just start calling them. Folks here have gotten my texts and calls to try to see who's available. But sometimes, unfortunately, there's not a fit. So our goal is to try to see if we can have enough families that can fit all of the children that do come our way. Because unfortunately, there are times when, for whatever reasons, either the age or the gender or the circumstances around the children who are coming into the system, it's not a good fit for the families that are on our list. And if we don't have enough families on our list, then those children will go either to a group home, which has happened, or to a non-Muslim home, which has also happened. And so trying to see, well, how can we expand to have enough homes where we can, provide these services for our kids. At this point, would love to open it up for folks. If you have questions, you can either raise your hand or put it in the chat, and I would love to, allow the folks on our panel here to answer questions that you may have regarding the process, regarding what it's like to have the children in your home, anything that comes to mind. Well, we have, mashallah, so much expertise with us here today.
I have a question, but I'll wait until somebody raises their hand.
Or, why don't you go ahead, and so while people are maybe thinking of their questions,
sure.
We can.
I don't mind. Thank you. Okay, so one of, I think me and my wife, one of our biggest concerns is like, how do you navigate living in the home with a person, like you said, I forgot who it was, I think Sister Huda, she mentioned that we need to foster older children or older kids. But like, how do you navigate through that if you have a non-mahram in your home, like cover, just in general, how do you navigate that? If somebody can answer that question.
Yeah, so I don't know if either Amina or Nadia and Fawad, if you have any insight into that, having thought through this a little bit, or I know Amina, you have a team. So if either of you would, or anyone else would like to chime in, feel free to unmute yourselves and jump in.
So first of all, I would like to point out that the Sikh Council of North America has issued guidance in which they strongly encourage Muslims to foster other youth. And they also include guidance of frequently asked questions like the mahram, non-mahram issue, on inheritance, on some other things that frequently come up. So I strongly encourage you all to look up that guidance if you want like the specific like Sikh perspective. For us, we're just like, we understand that our kids need a stable, loving home, right? And everything else is secondary. So having said that, we had a conversation, with our team early on, like as we were just talking and she's getting to know us and we're getting to know her, like, yeah, we're a pretty modest household. When we're picking out a swimsuit, I'm like, yeah, we're a modest household, but knowing that that's not her background and just understanding that, these kids have got to get out of the dark places that they're coming from, and, clothing issues are secondary. If I had a male, I'd be like, okay, do I feel like I need to wear hijab? Is he post-puberty and I need to wear hijab? Like, okay, maybe I'll wear hijab around the house. Like, if you're a working Muslim who wears hijab, you're wearing it outside anyways all the time. So, that's just how we navigate that a little bit. Our other children are younger, so we haven't had to deal with that. But like I said, we'll deal with it when it comes. But the main thing is just to provide these kids a stable, loving home. And, I think that is the Islamic ethos of what we should be working towards. It is not okay to sit back and watch 60,000 kids in California who are in foster care looking for homes. That is not the Islamic ethos. The Islamic ethos is to stand up and figure it out.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Jazakallah khair. So pretty much it's a challenge and you navigate around it because there's a greater good in it, from what I understand. Jazakallah khair.
Welcome. And I'm sure, Nadia and Fawad, might have their experiences as well.
Yeah, just sharing from us, I think what I did is I called Amina and I said, how do you figure this out? So having that network to talk to. But really, what she mentioned, that resource is really good. Sakina, what I'll do is I will WhatsApp it to you right now. I don't know if people want it. They can just get that. But to me, there is a lot of stigma around adoption in the Muslim community. People feel like adoption is haram, you know. And so to me, to actually hear from an Islamic perspective that this is the Sunnah, and that an orphan is someone who's lost either parent and is not able to. The Prophet was an orphan, and so when I heard that part, and then really reading the fiqh guidelines in the document that Amina was sharing, I think that put my mind at ease.
Kind of what Amina was saying about, and you also, brother, you mentioned like the greater good. I mean, I did speak to a couple of imams about it as well, and they all said, you know, yeah, those issues are there, but there's a massive need, which far outweighs, you know, these challenges. So just basically do the best that you can, but don't shy away from foster adoption because of that issue, if you can.
And I do know of another foster mom who did take in some older youth who weren't necessarily post-pubescent, so it's a debate, does she need to wear hijab or not, but she decided not to wear hijab around the house. But I mean, like, I don't think she's gonna burn in hell because of that, and you know, she needed to figure out her own balance from her home, and like Sakina said, there's not enough people stepping up. At least she stepped up and tried to provide a home for these kids who wouldn't have otherwise had a home to go to. So Allahu Alam, but I think again it goes to, you know, and again, I'm not the imam, go through the Fiqh Council of North America, but you know, the reason I got into this, I am a very spiritual person. I am a very, you know, religious person, and the Quran says, take care of the orphan, take care of the orphan, take care of the orphan, take care of the orphan. It does not say, cover your head, cover your head, cover your head. You know, that's part of it, but the emphasis is really about providing care for orphans. And again, I think Nadia mentioned that the children in foster care who are looking for permanent placement are legal orphans because reunification has not worked out. There is no biological alternative to them. So they are legal orphans in a sense, and they do need permanent placement. And so that is the kind of core value, I think, that we have to understand, and then work with your local imams, like Fawad said, he got his advice. Work with your counselors, your imams, look it up, and find something that's comfortable. And speak if you have a multi-partner home, whether you're living with your parents or a spouse or older children, like have that open conversation. Make sure everyone's comfortable, because the last thing you want to do is bringing a kid and then somebody's locking themselves up in the room somewhere because they're not comfortable. Like, you have to have an open conversation with everyone and really understand that there's no right way to do it, and honor everyone in your support system and in your like multi-partner home, whatever that looks like. Honor their backgrounds and don't judge each other. Like, I'm okay with this, why aren't you okay with this? Like, just have that open conversation and really find a balance that works for your family.
Yeah, I think what's really important is just that there's options, right? So like finding, like you said, Amina, what's comfortable for your family, and you know, and then trying to find the fit for that. So one thing we didn't mention this time, but we did mention last month, was when you are applying as a foster parent, you do get to specify the gender of the child you feel comfortable with, if it's, you know, how many children you feel comfortable with or bringing into your home, whether the age preference for the children that you feel comfortable bringing into your home. Because it has to be a good fit both for the child or children as well as the family, right? So making sure that there's comfort all around so that it's a good fit for anyone. And you can actually even specify cultural background or you know, faith, if that's important to you. To make sure that everyone involved feels like it's a good fit. I love how Huda's, taking care of the chat and answering the questions. Thank you so much, Huda. So just to kind of clarify, as I briefly mentioned, that the needs of the child are taken care of by the county. So not in addition to health insurance, all children, regardless of their home of origin financial situation, do get state Medi-Cal. So their health insurance is taken care of. You do get reimbursed a stipend every month. Right now, it's about $1,000 per child. It can go up a little bit depending on the needs of the child specifically. The children are theoretically given counseling, free counseling services. They're given other types of support, as well as I do believe there's even a daycare allowance. Maybe the foster parents or Huda, you might know better. But there are
there's a daycare.
Yeah,
you just have to qualify, but yeah, there's a daycare program.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So there are options to try to make sure that it's not a burden on the family taking the child in terms of finances. Right. So what other questions are out there? What's on folks' mind in terms of thinking about making this decision? I think one thing I'll ask, because it usually comes up, is where to start, right? There's all these options in terms of county versus foster family agency. If anyone would like to share why they made the decision that they chose, I think all the foster parents here we have today actually all use foster family agencies. So if anyone would like to share why they chose that route, and then maybe Huda, if you could talk, if appropriate, share a little bit about what it's like to go directly through the county.
So we actually initially we tried to go through the county before I called Faisal and talked to him, and the county actually sent some email saying you can go through us, but it's going to be like 6 months before we get to your application. So we recommend going through FFA.
Can I give a little context to that really quick?
Sure.
So the laws changed in California around several years ago, and so they had to recertify everybody on their list. So there was a backlog for a very long time. Just to give the county a little bit of credit, they did have a backlog for a really long time, so which is why they were referring out. But go ahead.
But, I mean, yeah. So I mean, that's why we initially went through the nonprofit. But I mean, through our fostering, we've worked with. So when you're working with the nonprofit or the FFA, they assign a social worker to you that stays with you throughout the process. And the children that come into your home, they have their own social workers through the county. And so, yeah, I mean, we really appreciated the support that we got from our FFA. But another foster parent that we know, she got her certified through the county. She did mention that she felt a little bit more kind of out in the wind, like she didn't really know what was going on. She didn't have a social worker assigned to her directly. So yeah, I mean, we haven't gone through the county, but it does seem as though there's more support through FFA, at least in our experience.
I also chose the FFA that I did mainly because of the timing that it took, but also one thing that I was looking for was an organization or FFA that uses, or sorry, not that uses, but that caters toward unaccompanied minors that come and then refugee kids. So this was one that had both the domestic program and then the, I think they call it URM, and then the unaccompanied minors. So they have like different programs. So if that's something that people are interested in doing, that exists out there. Obviously, yeah, I got into it initially with the intention of doing domestic children, but I like the ability to have the option because we have, unaccompanied minors coming through the border, as well as our refugee numbers are low now, but, inshallah, hopefully, at some point they'll go back up. So they were having, I know that the specific FFA that I was with had about like 8 boys that came from Burma, Myanmar, and they were Muslim, and they were trying to find homes for them, and they weren't able to find within the Muslim community. That was a struggle. And then they said they had like a Malaysian teenage female girl that came a couple of years ago. So there's definitely a lot of Muslim refugees that have come through their agency as well, that they've looked for a placement. Again, not that I'm encouraging people to only do it for the Muslim kids. I think it's important to do it for everyone, but because there is a need, and I know Huda touched on that a little bit, I think it was Huda, about the need for some level of common ground. So if you're literally being taken away from your country and being dropped off here as a refugee, you have no family. One thing being a religion or a background or a language, anything that you can have in common will make them feel a little bit more safe, a little bit more at home, that warmth. But yeah, Jazakallah khair. One question that I was thinking, Sakina, while you were asking the panelists, like, what would be if you guys had like one thing or a couple of hurdles in your mind that would prevent you from doing it? What would those be? Maybe you can address them with the panel and get different feedback from people, because I think usually there's one or two main things that people are like, this is why I can't do it. So I would love to hear from you guys.
I think that's a really great question. So if you know, if folks can use the chat or raise their hand, thinking about that question and saying, you know, what would prevent you from doing this at this point in your life? And maybe the panelists have some insight. As you're doing that, I noticed that Huda dropped in a link to a documentary about children who found their forever home, and coincidentally, episode, is it 4, 5? I'm blinking out right now which episode it is. One of our episodes actually features Amina's foster daughter and my mom, whose legal name is Cynthia Sadia, here today as her mentor, who are featured in that, I gotta say, Emmy award-winning, alhamdulillah, documentary series. So very cool. So to the panel, it's coming a question through the chat. Has COVID impacted any of the fostering protocols, specifically getting certified? Does anyone know? Maybe Huda could answer that since you're on the ground, and I think our current panelists have already been certified.
I don't work directly in the RFA unit, but everything has become virtual, and we're still able to place. So we still have to remove children from their homes, so we still need foster parents. And a lot of times RFA families come to us because we identify them as relative caregivers. So we start off with placing the child in the home because they know the child, and then they start off the process with the training and getting certified.
And so just to clarify, so RFA is Resource Family Approval?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to clarify. Yeah. And also, if I'm not mistaken, I believe a lot of the trainings and process there was already a move to bring a lot of it online even before COVID, just to make it more accessible to people. So there was a lot of the trainings different organizations were already bringing online. So chances are that a lot of the processes would be similar, just accessible online. I think a difference would be certain things like getting live scans and all of that. You'd probably still have to go into a facility to get that done. So questions. My wife and I live in a one-bedroom apartment. Is that sufficient to foster a child? If so, what if we have one child already? So I'm going to point to our social worker just in case you know. Huda, do you know the answer to that? In terms of
the child would have to have their own room. They can't share it with the adults.
I believe there's an exception if the child is very young, like 2 or under. So if the child's 2 or under, you can foster a child in the bedroom that you have, but a child over 2 has to have their own bedroom just for their own safety.
And to clarify, it doesn't have to be a bedroom per child. So you can have a 2-bedroom and that child can share a bedroom with another child. And I think you can mix genders up until I think the age of 7. And after 7, then boys have to be in their own room and girls can be in their own room. And my understanding is you can have up to 4 children in a room, maximum. So you can have up to 4 boys or 4 girls in a room, or if they're under 7, mix and match.
As long as there's space for everyone, and it has to be a bedroom with like a closet. So unfortunately, a living room would not count. Yeah.
But again, you know, with the assistance that that you get with fostering children, you know, you can use that assistance. That if you were to take on a child, that's $1,000, you know. And I've talked to other people before who are considering foster care, and literally it's like calculating, okay, with this extra $1,000 a month, could I afford to move up into a bigger apartment, maybe with 2 bedrooms, or maybe change cities? I mean, you know, when my husband and I were thinking about fostering, I don't know, I used to work at CARE. Some of you probably know that. It was a very intense job, but we were living in Chino Hills. I had a 40-minute commute, and my husband had a 30-minute commute to his clinic, and we're just like, how are we going to, you know, with our jobs and this big commute, how are we going to do this? And, you know, because foster children, you know, oftentimes they have therapy appointments and doctor appointments, and it's back and forth, and they get sick in school, you pick them up, like. So we moved from Chino Hills. We moved to Fullerton, which is, at that time I was at CARE, so much closer to the CARE office, a 10-minute drive. And then we got to the point where we had 2 kids in our house, so, you know, we're like, okay, what do we do now? Like, we would love to still be able to, you know, have a bigger family, help more kids. So what did we do? We expanded our home. You know, like, we did construction and expanded our home. So I know that those options aren't available to everyone, but I mean, I think it's just, I want to force our own understanding of what is possible. You know, I want to encourage you to think of these possibilities in your own life for how to make this work, because it is so important. You know, so what would that entail? What would that look like to make not just to take care of these kids, because honestly that's a big impetus, but this is also about bringing children into your life. And there's so much barakah in that and of itself, making a family. Like, so helping you to understand the possibilities of making your beautiful family. And just use your imagination, use the creativity, use the resources that the county can give you to try and make that possible, inshallah.
Amina, I think you just answered the question that came in, but if you have anything else to add, and then we can open it up to others. What is the best part about fostering children that someone who has not yet fostered a child would know about? Or should know about?
Yeah, I mean, well, for me, you know, I tell my children, the 2 that came to our house first, you know, because they see this baby and they're like, oh, you know, it causes some questions, like, we didn't come from your tummy, you know, things like that. I'm like, well, you gave me a gift that this little one didn't. Before you came, I was a hard worker, I was a sister, I was an auntie, I was a daughter, I was a, you know, sister-in-law and daughter-in-law and friend, but there was one thing I wasn't, that you gave me. You gave me the gift of motherhood. And for me, that's what my kids gave to me, the kids that we foster adopted, like, they gave me the gift of motherhood. And so with all the challenges that come with, you know, being a foster parent, yes, there are challenges, but, you know, I was clipping my son's toenails last night. And I was like, in these 7 years, how many times has your daddy clipped your toenails? 0, right? I'm like, this is why the Prophet said, like, heaven is at your mother's feet, because I am clipping these toenails off of your feet. When my son first came to our house, I couldn't clip his toenails. Why? Because his shoes were so small for him. His foster parents were not buying him bigger shoes. His toes were curled in like this. It took months for his toes to finally stretch out, because we finally got him shoes that would fit. So when I cut that boy's toenails, I remember those days when his toes couldn't even stretch out because his toes were too crunched into his too small shoes. So just the act of cutting his toenails, it's so much relief and barakah and happiness that whatever happens in life, whatever I'm able to achieve in my career, like, I was able to achieve this, and he is able to give this love back to me.
Thank you, Amina. So same question, I guess, to Nadia and Fawad, if you'd like to share. What's the best part about fostering from your perspective?
We'll answer, but you always have us go after Amina, and she always why don't you go first? Well, one thing I'll say before answering that question is there's definitely a need for foster parents, but if you're not in that place in your life where you can do it, there's a need for a huge community of support for the existing foster parents. Because you know, fostering has for us been an amazing experience. I would do it all over again if I was back, you know, a year ago. But it is challenging and it can feel very isolating. And so just having the resources of, you know, when we had our first placement, a friend came and said, "Here, I'm going to help you watch because now you got 4 kids under 5 in your house," or having another Muslim family that is a respite provider, because you know I would never when you can't travel unless you have permission with your foster child. So we couldn't do it like an international type of trip. So I didn't go, but I would not be comfortable putting her just in any random place. I would want to know the person. I would want to know she's going home. That's super important. And so for me, the best part about fostering, I would say 2 things. One is no matter how the situation plays out, and it's never going to play out the way you think it's going to play out, but no matter what happens, that fact that we were able to provide a secure attachment for that period of time will forever change that child's life. And that to me is an amazing thing to think about. So that's one. The other thing, particularly in the Muslim community, has been also working with the parents of the child who's in foster care, and the appreciation they have for knowing their child is okay. Because knowing their child is okay, coming to terms with, especially if they're from another place, what does it mean? Why did they take my child? How is this happening? If there's a language barrier, that type of thing.
Yeah, so I mean that's a lot of it is giving the parents peace of mind, and then also just kind of like what Amina was saying about the foster home that her children were in before they came to her. Unfortunately, not all the resource families in the system are great or do good jobs. You know, I mean, not buying shoes that allow the child's feet to like stretch out. I mean, that's terrible. So just knowing that at least for this portion of this child's life, they're in a safe, secure, stable place. You know, obviously they're, depending on the situation, they may not be happy being removed from their homes. They may miss their parents. But at least you're able to provide a home that they're safe and secure in, I guess, yeah.
Thank you both so much. Jazakumullah khair. Let's see, Safia, if you'd like to answer the same question, inshallah.
I do. It's hard to follow after Amina, Nadia, and Fawad. I pretty much echo a lot of the same things that they said. I will say, subhanAllah, recently the Muslim teen that I had was a 17-year-old girl. I was not looking for a teenager. I was looking for a younger child. I work full-time. I wanted somebody that I could put in, like, this is pre-COVID, obviously, you know, put in school and then have an after-school program, and then I can pick them up in order to fit my schedule. So it was I think I shouldn't say the only reason, but the reason I was open to it was because it was a Muslim foster kid, and I said, how can I turn a child that needs a safe, loving home, and I'm, you know, equipped to offer that, inshallah. Allah will help me. I'm not ready to deal with teenagers or teenage issues, but you prayed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to kind of give you the strength and guidance through that. But it was so rewarding that, subhanAllah, all of my hesitations that I had at that moment went away as I took on that journey. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kind of give me that strength and that peace of mind and the support to be able to do it. And I think 2 of the key things that made it so rewarding is, 1, knowing the things that you gave them. So I know Nadia was talking about the secure attachment and kind of modeling that loving relationship, but also they're learning so much from you. They're learning how to, even if it's how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, or how to cook something, or how to paint or draw, or whatever it is that they're learning. They're learning how to clean after themselves. They're learning skill sets that they didn't learn before. They didn't have anybody modeled on. They came from homes, or they came from the shelter, where they'd been staying, or wherever it was that they were before, and they didn't have that, and you're that for them. And I think knowing that, and knowing, as the foster child that I had left, we would write notes to each other. And so, like, before she left, we wrote long notes to each other. And just the things that, like, it was very emotional for me reading all the things that she took away from it, knowing what she can, I was, like, trying to help her get a job and write a resume and teaching her things about life and relationships and things like that, and that she all kind of absorbed it. And even, what's a luxury versus, a necessity, like spending money, because teens at that age, 17, almost 18, want to spend their allowance, et cetera. And so teaching those things that, like, over time, things that she, inshallah, will take away with her as she goes on in life, that will help her, these skill sets, that to me is really rewarding. That I think, no matter what we do, I know people donate money to the cause, right? But, like, giving them the time, the love, the teachable skills is invaluable. And then the second thing that I think is really important is the advocacy. So you are, like, in a way, you are advocating for them, because there are other foster parents, like Nadia and Fouad were mentioning, and Mina, like the other kids that come from other foster homes, where you see they didn't have that advocacy, whether it was my teen where she was in a non-Muslim home and would cook pork on a daily basis. So, like, that was one of her parents, like, her dad was like, I'm so happy that I don't have to even worry about any of these issues with you, not just the pork, but so much other things. But she would just, every day, it was like, what were you eating then? She was like, I made pasta every day. Without meat, it was just like she boiled pasta, and that was for, like, dinner, because they had their pork meal. And so it just, I mean, obviously it's sad, but it's just that advocacy where you're like, okay, how can we help? How can I help you throughout this process? And you're advocating for them on a personal level, but also with your relationships with the family, like the family bridging that cultural and language gap. The girl, her parents were Arab. They were immigrants. They don't really know the system, and they just feel like everybody's against them. And they're like, that therapist, he doesn't understand us, blah, 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 and I think being able to kind of bridge, okay, well, they're trying to tell you, this for whatever reason, and being that also with the therapist, I was able to, the therapist was like, her dad is like, doesn't want her to explore sexually and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, you have to understand also. So, like, for the therapist, he was like, these are concerns that I have with parents. So it's also, for me, being able to help him understand that, no, it's not necessarily like, he's trying to be abusive just because of those concerns, but, like, they come from a certain place, and you have to help them, like, work through it, but your job isn't to, like, tell him what to let her do and not do. So I think the cultural religious background, advocacy for, like, several moving parts of the system was, like, really rewarding for me to see that I was able to make an impact, and inshallah, like, was able to help them move along to be able to be reunified versus, everybody kind of holding it up as different little issues that really could have been worked out earlier, I should say. But alhamdulillah.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think that advocacy is a huge part, and I know others here on the panel have had to step in that role as well. And just wanted to mention, so all of our foster parents here tonight, we have a WhatsApp group that we share to try to keep a sense of community. And with just, in terms of what we try to provide as Seeds, which is organization, and then also just in general is supporting the parents through the process of becoming certified or to becoming approved as foster parents, resource parents, but then also afterward as well, to the best of our abilities, to kind of join in that support and that advocacy. And then to be an added voice when necessary, and then also just to answer questions and try to help build that community. As Nadia had mentioned earlier, another, if someone wants to support foster kids, but they realize, I don't have the bedroom available, I just don't really have all the pieces together that I need in this point in my life, there are many other ways to support. Some of those could be, helping these parents who are already out here doing the work by, maybe becoming a respite provider to provide that overnight support when they just need a break, or, even becoming there's other ways to become cleared as a babysitter or a transportation person. I mean, assuming COVID's over, right? Or other ways of just helping out the parents that are already there. I would say at the very least, just trying to educate ourselves about what's happening, to be vocal, to try to encourage family and friends who maybe aren't here tonight, but maybe do have the capacity about the importance of this process. To answer a couple questions to the questions in the chat, so there are group homes available. We don't really have like housing centers to that extent. However, group homes are considered like only a viable option if there's no foster home available, because we do want children to experience a home environment, a family environment as much as possible, because we know that helps reduce the trauma that they've experienced to a better degree than a more institutional setting. So we are trying to advocate for people to open up their homes. And yes, people can be 18 and above as long as they're willing. I know Zahid was asking about seniors. So if there's a senior who's capable and open and willing, empty nesters would be amazing to add to our community, our resource family community, because they might have the space and the know-how. They've done the family before. But also, we have young people, young single adults who are stepping in, also providing that space. So it can be any of the above. So yes, I see that there's a question. Go ahead and let's see. I can maybe unmute you. Fatima, thank you for putting in the chat. I didn't see your hand there. Go ahead and ask your question. Fatima?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. So my name is Fatima, and my question is, I started fostering medically fragile kids about 2 years ago because I'm also a nurse. But one of the things that I really liked about it was I don't have a daughter of my own, so I've always wanted to kind of have a little girl to, keep me company as well. So when I started fostering, I kind of got very over-attached to this little girl, and eventually she ended up going to a family that is in the process of adopting her. And I wasn't going to do this anymore, but then another little boy came, and I felt bad, and I did it. And I said, okay, this little boy is going to be my last one. Then I got a call, but that kid was a Muslim kid, so that became another catch for me. I was like, gosh, if I don't take him, he's going to end up in another home, just like the sister was describing that, then he will have to get this. But he has a lot of complex needs. My biggest question, or maybe something that I don't know, is about respite care. I'm very, very hesitant in letting the kids go into the hands of somebody that I don't know, and not knowing whether they've been through the background checks and all the certification process, because these are fragile kids. They're not just your average regular foster kids. Is there a specific place that you can get that kind of information for somebody that has already been through the process and you just need them to kind of come and watch the kids for like 3 hours here and there?
So I'm not too familiar with the process for medically fragile kids, but maybe we could follow up offline to see what resources are available. Are you in Los Angeles County or?
I live in Pasadena, yeah.
Okay. So first of all, welcome. You're now a part of our network, alhamdulillah. You've got added to our group, mashallah.
I missed it the last time. I wanted to join, but I was busy with something at work, and I never kind of join.
Okay, alhamdulillah. So I did, if you saw it in there, I posted my email address. So if you could please email me. So first of all, inshallah, like as a licensed foster parent, you're already a member of our community, alhamdulillah. And we can look into that. We can maybe, between our, the networks that we have, we can tap into people like Huda and others who will work in the county system to kind of try to see what the options are for care for your specific situation. We can, inshallah, learn together what that could look like.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay.
I wanted to, first of all, Sister Fatima, you are so cool. Jazakallah khair for your work, and we got you. We'll like Sakina said, we'll help you figure this out. We all have to have each other's backs, and so we'll figure this out. I did want to hopefully answer a previous question about getting certified right now, because actually my husband's and my certification did lapse because we did this so long ago. So we're actually getting recertified right now. Because we have a child placed in the home already, we are going through Orange County. So the placement is through LA County, but we are actually going through the process of getting certified through Orange County. Last I heard, Orange County is only doing certifying, because of the backlog, they're only certifying folks who have children placed in their homes. And at maybe Huda or someone after I'm done can explain what I always forget what the non-relative family placement, what that looks like, and how to get that done if if someone who needs to have their kid placed. But anyway, so during COVID, the county has just opened up and is now doing home visits to finalize home studies. We did do all of our classes online. We watched videos. There were 2 participatory sessions. So with the county, it was a total of, I think, like 8 hours of classes, and then I think an additional 2 hours of participatory, and then first aid, and then then the home visit, and the worker came with a mask on and everything. The only thing left, which they still need to figure out, is the first aid and CPR certification. The background check we didn't actually have to do because we had it done last year, but they are running background checks as well, the live scan. So once the kid is officially placed with us, then they said that we have 90 days to finish the CPR and first aid, and that if we cannot find a place that we are comfortable with doing it live, like, they'll figure it out. So they haven't, at least in Orange County, figured out that piece yet. So moral of the story is they are figuring out how to get certified currently. I'm not sure how the FFAs are doing it. So I would still just reach out to the FFAs about if they've reduced the number of classes, if they're all online, et cetera.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you all so much for joining us. I do realize we're probably over time, but I think that it was necessary to get all the questions in. This is just a kind of starting the conversation. So inshallah, we are available to continue answering questions. I myself and Huda especially, I think we both put our emails out there. And and our foster families as well, like, we can always tap into them. But feel free to please email myself for kind of general information, Huda for specifically information about LA County, because that's where she works. Alhamdulillah, I think it's so amazing that we have a social worker in the county with us today too. It really helps to provide that inside information. But we do, want to continue growing our community. We really want to bring this to the forefront of the Muslim community across the Southland here. Just knowing that there are, again, 30,000 kids in care in LA County specifically. Plus, if you add Orange County, the Inland Empire, there's a lot of children. And so the more that we can do to support them, the better. So again, whether it's becoming a resource family to provide long-term foster care and possibly adopt, whether it's becoming approved to be a respite home to support them, or just providing other types of support. And we didn't even go into like other types of mentorship that, you know, that my mom Sadia shared a little bit earlier, that she started as just a mentor for older foster youth, and through that mentoring relationship helped her find a foster home, which happened to be with her daughter, which worked out, alhamdulillah. But there's several organizations that excuse me, I have a cold today, that offer mentorship support, advocacy in the court system. Just there's so many opportunities to help these children. So we would love to help you find a fit for whichever ways works for you all. So inshallah, you know, again, our information is in the chat. I can also maybe pass it on, Omar, to the masjid. So if someone wants to contact the masjid directly, if it's not easy, if they don't have our information, then hopefully the masjid can also have some of the resources available.
Yes, definitely. Jazakallah khair. Very much appreciated. A lot of the people were on this call were messaging me, asking me about how to get this video. Inshallah, we're going to upload it to Masjid Hawthorne's YouTube channel. Just type in Masjid Hawthorne. Inshallah, it's going to pop up. And I'll try to get that on YouTube, inshallah, by the end of next week. And hopefully we can share this video around. And also we'll share the first video that we did with Sister Sakina and Sheikh Suhail Mullah. So you get you know, the benefits of being a foster parent, and also how to become a foster parent with this video, alhamdulillah. So I'll share that out to you. Is there anything else that we need to go over before we close, or is this the end of the program?
Just in terms of one other resource I forgot to mention, we also have, there's also a Facebook group available for those who use Facebook. It's Muslim Foster Parents. We have people from all around the country where we share resources and get support one another, so that's another option for you all. Just again, thank you all so much for being here tonight. SubhanAllah, it's always great to share this work, because it's so important, and especially with our, so I go to Lamina Masjid, so with my sister Masjid in Hawthorne, you know, to try to build, you know, the South Bay community together specifically, right? If we could be, I mean, just imagine, SubhanAllah, like if, you know, like Orange County's got a lot on us, but like if the South Bay could be like the foster care center of like the Muslim community, that would just be amazing. So we're really excited to continue growing this work within our local community. And again, I'm very grateful for you all for being here and available to answer any questions going forward, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair, Sister Sakina. Inshallah, I'll end officially now. But I just want to say thank you so much for all of your hard work. May Allah accept from you all, and may Allah give you guys sustenance. May Allah give you guys help and ease, and may Allah accept from the good work that you're doing, so it benefits you in the akhirah as well. You guys are very inspiring. Really, I look at the panelists today, and it really warms my heart to see the work that you are doing, and it inspires me. Inshallah, one day maybe me and my wife, we can do a fostering program as well. And I hope may Allah make one of us in this call who is not a foster parent today to become one. Ameen. And with that, I'll end officially. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك ونشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت ونستغفرك ونتوب إليك. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.